Record. Okay, so we're now recording. Nothing sensitive to be said. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, so to access visuals in UniPhi currently outside of the Documents module, you would need to click the little hamburger in the top left corner. And when you click that hamburger, there's a reporting menu. I'm going to go from bottom to top. The Power BI embedded dashboards are something we brought out about 3 years ago now, and it enables you to design your own visuals that are tailored to your data sets and what you're particularly looking to get out of it. And so in our presentation database, when I click on this major projects sub-navigation, you're going to see a lot of tabs. And so down the bottom here, you can see book to burn, client, time analysis issues, just plain dashboard, FISO, floor rates, ratios, progress, etc., etc. And so if I look at this particular one, we're looking at a progress report for a project. Over on the right here is filters, and you can change the project there, and it'll update dynamically with the data that's in UniPhi, presenting a new progress report that basically integrates a whole bunch of different content that exists in UniPhi, ranging from issues and risks to contract award dates to cash flow graphs and contract commitments and progress to date from an actuals perspective. And so those visuals are completely sort of endless, if you like, and customizable by yourselves. If you're not using them yet, definitely get in contact with your consultant and have a chat about how you can do that. There is a template on the uniphi.com.au website you can download that kicks you off. And you know, some of our clients have really dived into that, others less so. And I think it's fair enough to say and challenge us to say, well, you know, we come to software providers to provide us with software. We want you to be presenting the information to us as you see is most efficient. And that's hence what's driven this latest round in UniPhi 17 to bring these types of visuals more embedded into the application more dynamically as you do stuff. However, there have been other, and it's a bit of a history board of UniPhi nostalgia. If you go into the dashboards dashboard, there's a series of old school dashboards that were developed some time ago. Again, a subnav there giving you information. This is the integrated one showing, and this was actually a bit of a sort of requirements pool for what we might build in these newer versions. So these are old school dashboards that are probably going to be removed, if not on release of UniPhi 17, very shortly after. Having said that, one we're about to replicate is the submission one, which is my favorite in the system. Basically showing you a pipeline of what you've got in the marketplace from bids perspective, what sectors they're coming from, and how you've been tracking them. I mean, this major projects one hasn't really been set up to present that information, but you get the idea. Win-loss ratios over time, both from a count perspective, but also a value perspective is an intriguing one to see whether your marketing and sales efforts are getting you anywhere. But now you can get into Power BI and really interrogate that by which customer are you winning more work, you know, what salesperson's driving that for you, what margins are best against those, you know, how many times you've tendered, how many times you've won. That type of analysis is kind of limitless. So that's why we built that integration with that visualization tool. Another one that you may not be aware of, you know, the reports module is all Sql Server Reporting services. That's the platform that it uses. They tend to be tabular, but they do have graphs. And so you can see the types of reports that are available in this subnav. And if I come down to this one here, this is in benchmarking, and I run this particular report. I'm just going to click view straight away. There'll normally be either 2 pages, or at the bottom of each of these, there'll be a graph. And so you can see here, you know, this is looking at the elements in a budget for lots of different projects and how much of that element was taken up by, how much of that project took up that element in consideration. And so, you know, a lot of the, you know, tables that you see in the reports in UniPhi do have that. And so, you know, not many people potentially go to that last page or what have you, but you know, if I come in and run a revenue by project cash flow report and click view, it'll give me the tabular based cash flow over time for all projects by sector and then project specific. And if I just go to the last page, there'll then be a graphical representation of that, which is going to be similar to the embedded ones that you see in our system at the moment. So cumulative and then sort of month by month view of the world. Again, help assessing sales performance in the business. Others maybe, if ever you see the word export in a report in here, it's basically been designed to be straight exported to Excel for reporting purposes. So if I go into timesheets and I just change over here the format to Excel and click view, it'll open up the report in Excel instead of in the web application. And you can paste that into a pre-formatted Excel sheet that you may have already used to do charts, but just to demonstrate, see how it's all sort of column-based data dump. If I was to go to insert now and go to pivot chart and say pivot chart and pivot table, click OK, that's all I have to do and I'm off and running. I can then say, okay, give me a project and give me how many hours that people spend on projects, and voila, I've got a visual. And so that was our old school before we had Power BI embedded way of trying to support people to do their own custom charts for the data that exists. So if you see export written after a report, that's what it's going to do. If it doesn't have export, it comes out with like headings and other things to make the report explain what it is that you're seeing, and it's not as easy to export to Excel. You have to manipulate the data after that. I guess nowadays we'd be recommending potentially Power BI as the source of that. But as people have already built these up over time, they're still there for that purpose to maintain their Excel reports. And there's one last reporting visualization. This is giving you a tricksy precursor to the rest of the presentation. But if I just hide that, currently, if I just filter for, say, PCG, and I open up the resulting document, within these documents, you can integrate a whole bunch of different templates, template controls we call them, and they will then display. Hopefully this is coming through, but I've got some internet problems at the moment. So while that chugs away, we'll come back to it later, and we'll go back to the main part of this demonstration. Oh boy. Well, this is exciting. How's our poll going? If someone can say you can still hear me, because I'm not sure if this is what part of the network is dying on me here, but something's dying. We all good, are we?
Yep, I can hear you, Mark.
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, so doesn't look like it's internet connectivity, but anyway, everything's decided to refresh now. Let's hope that's the last. I didn't actually launch the poll. So anyway, that's probably best because it's now after all of that information. I've launched the poll now. There's a series of questions in there for you to go through and looking for feedback about how people are actually leveraging their data at the moment. And so if you want to have a go at answering some of those questions for us as we continue on with the demonstration. All right, so let me just click on this PCG and see if we've got something here. Here we go. So you'll see there's little graphics throughout this document that when rendered to PDF will display. You can have S-curves, there's not a lot in that one. Pie charts and other visuals coming out through the document system as well there, which was fantastic, that was. All right, so now we're into UniPhi 17 land and we're having a look at what we've done around visualizations and charts, graphs. For that, this is the portfolio summary screen, and as you can see, there's nothing there. There will be by the time it launches in July. So there'll be aggregated portfolio views of the data, similar to that dashboard that I showed you, but just a little more dynamic and clean and better looking, and probably some different content. So to demonstrate the portfolio charting aspects, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go across the top of the different modules here and have a look at what happens. So I'll go to documents first. And the first thing you would have seen, I'll just go back to all, is a little toggle over here. So depending on what you're doing, if you're looking to analyze information, you would toggle the charts on. But if you're looking to kind of create content, like create new documents, create a budget, create a contract, you probably will toggle this off, just so it doesn't get in the road of doing that sort of stuff. So toggled on, we'll see 4 charts in this particular screen. Now, at the moment, you are stuck with the 4 charts we've designed, but you know, within the next 3 months, this will expand into the ability to pick and choose from a suite of different charts, which is why we're asking if you can feed us back information you would like seen as a visual in a graph of some description, and we will incorporate that into the suite. Obviously, at any point in time, you'll only see 4 on this screen because that kind of maximizes the screen space, but you will be able to, you know, close out and insert in a different suite of different charts from the documents module in some way, shape, or form. In this particular suite, though, obviously we've tried to come up with things that we think may be useful. The first chart over here is just counting how many documents are open by category, and category is this drop down here. And one of the things that it's kind of like a folder structure, but it's matrix based. If you think about drawings on a project, you might have electrical, civil, architectural, you know, drawings. And so the drawings category aggregates all of those, so you can still have one drawings register. And thank you. And just to comment that looks good. That's what we're hoping. And so you can, you know, if I was to select drawings, for example, in the template list, so these graphs will update now, and in the template list, you would get a list of different types of drawings that might be uploaded into the system. And you will be able to see, you know, by status. So UniPhi has a publishing methodology that you're all probably familiar with from private through to sign off. This donut, making me hungry at lunchtime, doesn't include private for the reason that they're private. So the table below may have more documents in the list than what's in the pie because, or the donut, because it has private documents that you're currently working on and haven't actually published. And then we get by template, so the next level down. So one category has lots of templates, and you can see how many documents you have that are open, that are unsigned off across those templates. And then finally, how many are overdue. And so all of these dashboards update using the embedded filtering in the system. If I filter on a sector, it'll probably go to 0 here, but no, we've got the updated dashboard. If I search, it'll update to whatever I search for. And if I use the expanded search, you will get things like, you know, the filters that exist within documents. So I don't know if people use that, but that's quite a powerful, plus a free text search that is actually searching the text that exists within the documents themselves. Once searched, the graph then updates with the results. So that's the sort of flavor you're going to get as I move across the modules, but the content will obviously change. But the structure is the same. Use some filtering, you'll get an updated visual. So if I jump across to the issues module and I just kick back a little bit to all, what you'll see within here is a trend of how your issues are increasing or decreasing over time. And this is so we've been using it in our own system for a while, and this has been a really surprising one for me and a really useful one. So if you were to select, for example, a category here, let's say RFIs to the contractor, again, that graph's going to update, and you can see, you know, whether that's growing. Again, for a portfolio, when you drill into a project, you get just the project's perspective on that, but you still get the chart. And also the open duration, so the turnaround time that you're doing on that particular RFI. So if you have standard service levels that you need to perform on contracts, you can kind of track that through these visualizations on how quickly you're turning around RFIs. On a presentation database that's been used for many years, we have a rather horrendously large 13 months to tell a contractor a response once they've asked us a question. But if you also use UniPhi like we do as a bit of a CRM, the way we use the sales leads is we generate these parent-child relationships for locations that roll up into the program of sales leads. And then I can change that category to sales. And I can see how I'm tracking, over time with my sales. So if I've had a campaign, or I'm doing a UniPhi 17 launch, and I'm, we're publishing LinkedIn articles, and we're writing blog posts, and we're doing webinars, it's interesting to see if there's any correlation with that chart going up or down, as the case may be. Equally, if I go to all projects, for some reason that chart's not there. Sometimes the fourth one's calculating in the background. I'm working on performance tweaks to that as we speak. But one of the more depressing things for us was when we went to all projects for sales leads and got that answer of open and closed turnaround time. It was quite a long time. And so it's telling you how long it takes to move a sales lead from open into a closed position, either cancelled or won. Was an interesting statistic for us. So maybe there'll be little pieces of nuggets that you can unlock within your own deployment like that when we release this. That's something that I found interesting when doing that. So definitely the filters are interesting. On an RFI analysis basis, the reason I sort of know about RFIs is we built a visualization for a client in Power BI to manage RFI tracking, and that included turnaround times. And obviously you can select by assignment and see if Annie Lennox is being a productive PM and how long it's taking her to turn her RFIs around. And you can see she's half as long as the company as a whole, so she's doing exceptionally well. And this is her trend of how many she's having to manage. And so, again, interesting piece of analysis in there. Like I was saying before, there's only 4 in the first release, but if there are some that are, of interest to you that isn't there, feel free to let us know, and we'll start to build them into the suite of charts that you'll be able to basically drag and drop into here to get your collection. Risks is trending at the moment. I think it's only 2. So what it does is it looks at how the profile of the current risk portfolio is over time. Is your company getting more or less risky, or is your project getting more or less risky over time in terms of its current profile? Then as you treat risks, you're hoping that the ratings change. As you can see here, there's a lot more low, with the logic being that you're treating those risks, and therefore when they get re-rated once they've been treated, they're going to be in a different perspective. You're going to have a different profile. And so this trending basically helps you analyze what's happening with the risk profile of the business over time. Of course, you need to be logging those risks in the system for any of these charts to be giving you that information. And there's plenty of sort of data quality issues around that. There's no, with the RFI responses, if you don't close the RFI in UniPhi, even if you have closed it with the contractor, it's going to have, a 6-day turnaround, a 10-day turnaround until you actually close that RFI. They're the sorts of things that you're going to need to sort of stay on top of. But even then, you can factor in, various insights from that type of analysis, like, are you getting more proactive in managing your RFIs because the data's showing that you're now turning them around in 3 days, when you knew you were kind of doing that already anyway, but you just weren't driving that action in UniPhi to close out those issues. So there will always be something that the data will tell you. One of the more interesting dashboards, it relates to the new time module. And so this, when it first loads, portfolio wide is quite large, so you need to be a little patient with that. But once it does, you can then drill in to projects. What it will display is the overarching timeline of a project, and then underneath that a Gantt of the stages if you have scheduled them. So UniPhi has a life cycle that you can define. And so depending on what you've defined that life cycle as, you can then put start and finish dates from a baseline and from an actual forecast perspective against those particular projects. And so then, going down the list, you've got portfolios, again, able to be filtered using the modal. And you'll see blue lines representing the start and finish dates of those life cycle phases. And you'll see stars as well that represent milestones that sit on top of that. And so the milestones sit on top of the bar. And then if you are scheduling contracts as well, they will then come in as well. So as I scroll down, you'll see sort of maroon bars for the Queenslanders that were joined us, and so hopefully somewhere down here, I saw a big one, there we go. And so on this one, these represent contracts, and contract deliverables that sit underneath that contract can be seen as well. And so, you know, you've got quite a deep level of this Gantt being able to be shown now. And so again, you can drill in on this particular project. And when you do, it'll be taken to the schedule view, which looks at baseline and actual forecast, with baseline being the top and actual forecast the bottom. Again, the stars represent milestones along the way, and you can see how visually how they're slipping. But equally, if you go to the dashboard, see I've selected Christchurch Schools Rebuild Program, and I clicked on that. If I go to the dashboard of that view, it'll give me depth level. So when you're in schedule, it doesn't have that depth, but when I'm in the dashboard, it gives me the entire levels that I've got. And you'll see here that we have contracts with people assigned to them, and that darker maroon is the progress. So you can see it's 71% complete when you hover, and this one's 100%. And these are the people who have been allocated to that contract. And so, yeah, you can get quite a deep view of the sort of stages and where things are at. If you select the project level, it'll switch back to being a baseline comparison. So you can track the slippage. And then you can focus on particular levels if you wish by selecting, you know, just looking at the contract level and seeing where those contracts are coming in, and, you know, a little bit of data mismatch here in that the feasibility isn't going as far as what we think the contract's going to go. The other thing to note along there is the subnavs for this time module. In milestones, you'll get the Gantt again, and this is where the data's coming from. So you'll you know, have your milestone dates there, which you can synchronize with the life cycle phases, so that if the life cycle phases push out, so do the milestones. But equally, you can pull this information in from P6 and MS Project schedules. And if you've done that, what happens is this little map WBS comes in, and this is essentially a P6. Actually, this is MS Project schedule. And one of the things you can do is add the milestones that exist in the MS Project schedule to your milestones. And then once you've done that, it'll synchronize every time you upload the MS Project schedule into UniPhi those dates. But equally, you can synchronize the schedule dates. So if this schedule pushes out, your schedule for the feasibility, concept design, detailed design, etc., will push out as well. You have a level filter there to filter to which level you're going to do that at. Whether you're just looking for milestones, you can filter them to those. You can kind of tell what's a milestone because the little tick box here is only on milestones. And that feature then enables you to drive that visual so that you can see progress from a time perspective. So go back to all, we'll go back to revenue first, and then I'll go back to all projects. Yes, it is possible to show the multiple. So the question was, is it possible to show the milestone program for multiple projects on one chart? So yes, it is. So back into the time, we may need to chuck a milestone filter in there, but that is portfolio displayed. And so if we add milestone in there only, so milestones are being shown there, but they're being shown in relationship with their schedule, and it is across multiple projects. So you can see that this has got quite a lot of projects in it. Probably better if I filter down to something to give it a little bit less. So, and so you can see we've got these milestones on the Mervac project coming in here. It includes dynamically the start date of a contract as a milestone, so you don't need to key that in, and the adjusted completion date. So this is at the contract level, whereas this will be a milestone project award against the Coles Hurstville project. Okay. in revenue and costs, these will change depending on the chart of accounts that you're in. So if I go to revenue practice, you'll get that. I had more data on it when I practiced it before. Here we go. And so you'll get an S-curve of your cash flow profile. Go back to 2020. 122. Here we go. Definitely had a better graph there before, but anyway, the S-curve profile of your revenue, what it's made up of in terms of the service codes that you might use in your particular business to track revenue. This is a speedometer of actuals, so the black line is reporting where your actuals are compared to a phased target. So if you've got a phased baseline of actuals that you're expecting, that's where you should have been, and this is where you are. Thanks, Karen. Karen saved the day. It's because I put that filter in the chip there. That's better. Now, if I go back to 2021, we should be good. This is called power programming. Someone overlooks your work and tells you where you're going wrong. That's a little neater. And then this one looks at what you forecast remaining versus what your target is. So again, we're behind target by some margin here. So just under $1 million we've got as a forecast, and we've targeted 5. And so again, the first 4 visuals in that particular space, definitely looking for extras. Cost is very similar, a little couple of different tweaks. When you drill in, you can get different project-based dashboards around this, but again, cash flow post-contract is quite a nice one on this one. And where the costs are coming from, so mostly your construction contract versus the other consultants and other costs that you've paid. Again, the target of actuals, what you've actually progressed on this project versus where your phase target was, and what your forecast remaining is versus the target. So across the portfolio, and again, if we drill in on a project, we'll get the detailed view just for that project as a graph updated. And so they're all the portfolio ones that exist at the moment. But if I go back to the summary screen, and actually drill in on a project, we can start to see some graphs that come into the system from a project-specific perspective. So this subnav has changed a little bit. There's less of them now because we've moved time out of summary and into its own module, which is good. And if I go to details, what you get is a sort of dashboard report of this particular project. You get some description, assuming you've entered it in, and hopefully a humorous one. You get the priority. If you've got a prioritization framework set up, you get what phase it's in and an actual forecast. The KPIs status subnav has been removed and put into this section here that's tracking the various elements of this particular project. And then you get a whole bunch of different integrated, across the functions charts. This is an interesting one that's looking at if you're a sort of managing contractor, you will get the net of your internal and revenue-based contracts. So this is showing you kind of the gross margin, excluding internal resource time that a project or collection of projects might be giving you, and what's making that up. Make all our money out of variations sort of thing. The risk trend is below here, and the dashboard of the Gantt as well. And so when you drill in on a project and you want to know how it's performing, hopefully these graphs will help you analyze the performance of that particular project. There's a few other charts that will come in but aren't in this screen because the data is not in this particular project. But as you change projects, you get a different dashboard, which will have content that exists or not, as the case may be. So you can see this one has documents, so therefore there's a documents chart, new cash flow, different contracts view, and a new schedule. but no risks because it's not risky, even though it says risk status is okay. So yeah, it's new to UniPhi 17. And the other part that has, so if I was to go across here now, it would have the same types of charts I showed you from the portfolio view. It would just be looking at it from this particular project's perspective. Whereas if I go to the contracts view, it has a project specific contracts chart. We don't have a portfolio contracts chart yet, that will come. But this is an interesting one. It shows you the different contracts that you've let, and the claimed is the other chart. So this, it's always two bars per contract. One will be a multicolored chart made up of the different items that give you the adjusted contract sum or the potential estimated completion contract sum for construction services, etc. And then this is showing you progress. So the yellow is your claimed, and you'll visually be able to see how much you've progressed with a high level, committed, forecast, progress, claim, backlog. The forecast is your variations that haven't been approved yet or any pending contracts. So committed is approved contracts and approved variations. That minus that gives you your backlog. We haven't broken it back down into contracted backlog and awarded backlog. If that's something that people want, we can put that in as well. Again, how much of the project is being made up of variations as a percentage. These do stuff at the moment, but it's not a lot. It's like move the piece out to make you want to bite the donut. But over time, we will make some of these interactive to actually, click that, it'll show you the contract down here, and probably more in the issues system, you can see the collection of issues that bar relates to. And yeah, that's as far as we've gotten to date. Thanks, Karen. So I did have a poll running while all that was going on, so feel free to keep answering it. I can't launch the results until I end polling, so I'll give a couple of seconds before I share the results, so you can at least have a look at how people are doing things now. And yeah, feel free to ask a comment, either unmuting yourself or in the chat, any questions around any of those bits. I guess our goal is that if you do update data in the system, you can instantly get feedback visually on the impact of that particular piece of content. And hopefully over time, when you've got lots of people keying data into the system, you can analyze the effects of particular strategic tasks, like I mentioned, the campaigning task, or if you've just gone out to let a whole suite of contracts across a portfolio, you can see how that letting procedure is going from a portfolio view, probably in the cost module, to see the commitments increasing, and that type of thing. So at the moment, these charts are only existing in the system itself. So it's for people using the application, which is a good question. The challenge is if you're using this for your management of your project for your client, but the client doesn't have access, how do you get that information out? So that challenge still exists. We did create a graph template object that is reading the same style of graph that we showed in our dashboard at the beginning. So it is possible that we could upgrade that template control to use this type of visual. It's, instead of it being an image, it's actually much more user-friendly sort of interface, so that you can get these little funky hovers on it, and they do look a bit better. They look a lot better. So it is possible that over time we'll use these charts as the ones that you can use when you embed them in documents, but at the moment they're just in the screens that I showed you. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, no worries, mate. All right, let's end this poll and share it. And as I said, keep asking questions. Happy to answer them while I'm here. Sharing the results. So 6 of the attendees use Power BI, which is great, on the UniPhi data. A couple of people use the current dashboards feature. That's good to know. Lots of Excel dashboards, SharePoint, Smart Sheets. yeah, a lot of people exporting it to Excel. So that capability will stay. Definitely not going to break anyone's internal Excel reporting platforms. And some people, well, one person's using the graph. We need to obviously improve and enhance on that. The document system for reporting is a little bit of a conundrum for us. Is it still going to be the way we share information, or are we going to start publishing out these pages and these dashboards to clients to log in and use? So I'll be interested in what people think about that. Is it still PDF reports being sent around the world via email, or is it more online in the future? Thanks a lot. Yeah, we do still need the manual printout to PDF. I'm just hoping that one day we don't before I retire. It'd be nice. So yeah, that's our challenge to sort of help both worlds. I mean, we have one client who has 3 full-time Power BI people interrogating the data and sharing that data with their client from one perspective, but then we've got lots of other users who want to be able to just create a PDF, as they should be able to, because that's what clients are demanding, and send that to them as an electronic copy, or printing it out, and if that still happens, and binding it and mailing it, keeping Australia Post in business. Okay. So yeah, only 40 minutes long, but hopefully of some use, and an extra early lunch break for us all. If there's no other questions, I'll end it there, but please feel free to feedback what sort of visuals you'd like to see. And we've got Frida on the call. She'll be busily supporting those needs in a full-time basis. All right, guys, hopefully you can come next week. Not 100% sure what the topic is. I think it's copy paste Excel. And yeah, come along, let us know what you think. If you want to come into the to the next week's webinar and tell me something that relates to a previous webinar, please feel free to do so, or even to something that's off topic. These are sort of community forums, if you like, a chance to discuss things that you might want to hear from other users in the world that are using it, and share that content. All right, I'll talk to you next week.